Mini Myths.
Tech Nerd is here at the bench, and today we are talking again about another persistent Mini-14 myth, that being that it is simply too hard to mount optics on the Mini-14. So let's get into that right now. And first off, I have to say, unfortunately, if you have an older Mini, and that being one made prior to 2005, 2008, when the change in dies happened, not a lot of this is going to apply to you. Sorry to tell you that, but the Mini I have is a newer one, and the newer ones just come with a lot more possibilities. Now, that being said, two of these options are available to you. Now, the reason why that myth persists is because of what I just said, that the older minis are a little more difficult to mount optics on, and two, just simply because of the ejection pattern of the Mini, it kind of just throws everything out here, and it's very hard to get an optic over the receiver and not have it interfere with the ejection pattern. Let's go ahead and get into our first option, and we're going to bring the camera down here so you can see some of what we have available for you. All right, fellow humans, so I think the first thing we want to talk about here is, of course, the Samson rail. And it's just the undeniable usefulness of this item. Now, I have mine here. Mine's an early one, and it's pretty easy to see what this does for you. It gives you a huge forward portion of Picatinny rails, as well as all of these little holes here. And if you don't know what those are, you might be wondering, those are not just to vent heat, although they do a decent job of it. Those are for mini red dots. Now, since they first brought this out, they've come out with a variety of other mounting types. And because of that, they do have about 4 different of these Samson rails out there. So before you run out and buy one, see what kind of optic you have or what kind you're planning to get, and plan accordingly with which Samson rail you're going to get, because you really only want to have one. You want to permanently mount it on here, and then you don't ever want to touch it again. Because I will tell you, when you do mount this rail, you do have to monkey a bit with the gas block. So it's not difficult to do if you follow the instructions that Samson lays out. It's very fine, and you won't have any trouble. I never did. Now, here's another elephant in the room. If you want to put a scope on this Samson rail, because it's so far forward of the action and your eye relief, you're going to need what's called a scout scope, or a pistol scope, or a long eye relief scope. I have one here. This is a really, really cheap one. It's by NC Star. No, I don't use this anymore, and I don't use any optics actually on my Mini-14, but this is just kind of an example of what you would do. Now, I cannot show you installing this. YouTube doesn't like that. It fears I may coerce you and damn your soul. So we're going to take a little break. I'm going to install it, and then we'll show you just to see what it looks like. All right, fellow humans, we're back, and there it is mounted. That is a Mini-14 with a scout scope. Now, does it look a little odd? Does it look a little strange? Yeah, it kind of does. That's sort of par for the course with the whole scout scope setup. If you're not familiar with it, I'm not going to get into it here, but look it up and you'll find a whole host of videos on it. Basically, what it entails is that you have a scope with a very, very long eye relief, really out to here. You can look back here, where your regular irons would be, and the scope will come in clear. They generally don't make these in very high powers. This is a 2-7. This is probably a really easy way to scope your Mini, and this is also available to those of you who have an older Mini, because these Samson rails fit on any of the Minis, new or old. Now, you could also just chuck all that and you could decide you don't need any magnification. Why don't we use just a regular red dot? You could certainly do that. Let's take a break and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, fellow humans, so there we go. There is a fairly typical red dot mounted on our Samson rail. And you might be wondering, why would you put a red dot on it? Well, dots are very good if you have eye trouble. You basically can just put that red dot on the target and you're generally going to get pretty close. So basically, that's a Picatinny mounted red dot. Now, I don't have any. I don't have any mini red dots handy, or else I'd put one of those on for you. But those basically just screw down, similar to the way they do on pistols. Pistols usually use a plate, a mounting plate. This, I don't believe it would. These would be direct mounted right here. That's pretty much it for the Samson rail. Now, I do want you to understand there are certainly other options similar to this that are not made by Samson. Ultimac makes one. I think Midwest Industries makes one. I see C&G or CG&C. I can't remember. They make one also. I think the Samson one is the most updated, the most current, because they have again, they have placements for mini red dots. I don't think those other ones do. They basically just put a rail on there and that's it. All right, folks, let's move on to our next option. All right, fellow humans, we are back, and this next option is actually included with your Mini, assuming again that you have a new one and that you bought it new. Basically, it's an included Picatinny rail, looks just like this, and it's the new Minis come already tapped. You just have to kind of install it, screw it in there, and there you go. You have an instant rail right on top of the action. Now, what's good and what's bad? Well, the good thing is that you pretty much turn your Mini into a standard rifle, a standard kind of modern-ish rifle where you can mount scopes and LPVOs and red dots right here, right in front of your eye, right on top of the action, and you get all of the bonuses of the new age. What's bad about it is that it's right above the action, and these are notorious for sending spent brass either banging into your scope or banging into this rail. And I've heard tales, some people say that it can go down, get into the action, cause failures to feed, and it also does raise up your point of aim. So if you do have a traditional stock, you're probably going to have to get some sort of cheek riser so that you can get a clear picture. Now, if you have this type of stock, this A-team stock, I don't know if you're going to be able to use that at all. But let me show you what this would look like with a scope and a red dot. Okay, fellow humans, there we are, and as you can see, that looks like basically just a regular modern rifle with a scope attached to it. Now, this is our scout scope from before. I'm just using that as an example, but very, very easy option. The other, what makes it even more easy is, again, if you bought it new, it's included in your box. If you didn't, these are not expensive. Probably 20 quatlus, if that. Let's take a look and see what a red dot looks on top of there. All right, fellow humans, so here we are with a red dot on top of there. And I did mount this one pretty far forward. With this, you're going to have to either have it forward or rear of the action, because you have this sort of dip in where the rounds are going to come popping out of there by 100 miles an hour, and there's not enough rail space here to get that. Now, I put it here. I think that's probably the most logical place for a red dot on one of these. It's right below the magazine, and it's kind of forward, so that's a good thing too. All right, the next option I want to move on to, also included in your box. Stay tuned. All right, my very good friends, third option also included in the box are the Ruger proprietary scope rings. Now, there are many that do not like these. They blame them for all ills of the universe, like a man yelling at clouds. Ruger has their own system for scope rings. They only fit on Ruger items and they only fit on one way. I will tell you, there is method to their madness, however, and that is because they only fit on one way. You can see here there are there are notches for how to put them in. The cool thing about that is you cannot mount them incorrectly. I'm going to repeat that. You cannot mount them incorrectly. Many people, when they're mounting scopes on rifles, do not get them correct, and so they have issues. Ruger has sidestepped all of that because they can only be mounted one way, and that is the correct way. So the only user error comes in with you putting your scope on the rings. You take it to a competent gunsmith, they're going to be able to do that for you, or you can risk doing it yourself. And you can buy more of these, and you can buy them in whatever height you want. I believe these are 5s and these are 6s. Has the height right there on them. As with the Picatinny rail, lets you have a very traditional setup. It does limit you, of course, to basically a fairly ordinary scope. If you wanted a scope mounted closer to the action, this is probably what I would use. Although I will tell you, you are also still going to get the issue of brass ejecting out of here at light speed and quite possibly hitting your scope. A lot of people don't like that. All right, folks, so that's really it for the rings. There's not too much more to say about them. Let's move on to our last and final option. All right, fellow humans, coming in last for our options for scope mounts is the side mount option. And this is an option for those of you with the older minis with the pencil barrels. This actually attaches here, and this is called the bolt lock cover plate. Now, I'm not going to take mine off. It takes a bit of disassembly. I'm not going to do that, but basically what you do is you have to remove this plate and then you replace it with this plate right here. And what it does is, this is a mock-up. YouTube, understand, we are not installing anything. I'm just showing them what it looks like. Basically, just puts a Picatinny rail above the action, similar to the Picatinny rail that you have. So a little bit like either an SKS or a AK-47, the way they have side-mounted plates. Basically just attaches there and then gives you a integrated rail that you can have here. And again, that gives you the options of having either just a regular scope, or you can put a red dot or an LPVO on here. Now, the cons are, again, similar to with the others. First off, this places it even higher than the included Picatinny rail, and also still has the disadvantage of allowing brass to come up and hit your optic or this rail. Also, it is something I wouldn't say it's difficult, but it is involved as far as the installation. A lot of people don't want to bother with that. Also, with now that those old pencil barrels are no longer being made, these are a little harder to find. So it does allow you to have a more traditional setup, more tactical setup, but it is bulky, it's clumsy, and kind of gets in the way. But it works. So there we go. All right, folks, that's it for our options. Let's go into conclusions and see what we think of the best option out there. All right, fellow humans, there we go. So there are our 4 options to mounting optics to the Mini-14. It is not a mystery. There are plenty of options available, and it is certainly not a myth. You can mount optics to this platform, I would say, just as easy as an AR, but almost. And you can certainly get it into the modern age. So now, what I would like to know from you is down below in the comment section. I'm going to leave a pinned comment. I would like to know from all of you, what is your preferred method for mounting optics to your Mini-14. Also, what do you think works and doesn't work? And if you do have another option that we did not talk about, by all means, let us know. Now, what is my chosen option? I think it's probably pretty clear that I think the Samson rail is the most useful option here, because you have this nice integrated rail. You can put many red dots on it, and it also fits so nicely on here and serves as a heat sink as well. So I think it's just all around. I think that's the best option. If I had a pencil barrel and I wanted something there, I think that's the solution for those as well. And like I said, I think it's the best solution, not only for this Mini-14, but I think for all of them. So, but again, I want to know what you think. So let us know that. Also, let us know down below if there's any other Mini-14 myths you would like covered by the self-acclaimed chief nerd of the Mini-14 as I am. Let me know, what other issues would you like to see covered. I hope you all got something out of this video today. If you would, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you see that hype button, hit that hype button. And don't forget to hit the bell notification so you see when all of our videos drop. Folks, this has been Tac Nerd, and this has been 4 options for mounting an optic to the Mini-14. Fellow humans, I am out of here.